there was a very, very rich merchant who owned great swathes of pasture land. But on that pasture land there were 2 areas of forest, and in each area the merchant had hired guards, rangers, to ensure that the trees in the forest were not felled illegally, or that animals and birds were not poached. But this merchant had an only daughter who had come to marriageable age, and the merchant was seeking a suitor for her who was intelligent, spiritual, and scholarly, because he wanted these attributes to be passed on to his grandchildren. So in seeking a suitable husband for her, he found a young man by the name of Yuval. Now Yuval, it was said, knew all the ancient spiritual texts by heart. So the marriage was arranged, and as soon as Yuval and his bride met, they were deeply in love, because it had been ordained in heaven that this union would take place. But after the marriage, when Yuval came to live in his father-in-law's house, it was noted that every day Yuval, after the morning breakfast together, would leave, riding his horse off into the forest. Now, people pondered, where was it that he was going every day, because he did not return until it was time for the evening meal and prayers. And it was wondered, where did he go? Of course, they knew that there was no need for him to take books to study, because he knew them all by heart. But, of course, the ranger, the guard who guarded over one of these tracts of forest, noticed and followed Yuval, and observed that when Yuval entered a stagnant pond to bathe, when he arose from the pond, the water was pure, drinkable, and when he sat under a barren tree, the tree would burst out into bloom and bear fruit, and so on. In witnessing this, the ranger, the guard, could not help himself, because he had a deep, deep need inside himself. So one day he took up the courage to approach Yuval, and he said, please, I do not want to impose on you, but please, can you help me? My wife and I have longed for a child, but we have been unsuccessful. Please, can you help us? Yuval looked him, the ranger, deeply in the eyes, and he said, "Your beseeching for a child comes from your own want and need. The desire to have a child so that they can take care of you in your old age. To be there to prepare your body for burial and so forth. When you can change your beseeching, a child will be given to you." And indeed it happened. The ranger, thinking deeply and pondering on what Yuval had said, changed his importuning, changed his prayers, and it was not long before his wife became pregnant with their son. Now the time went on, and it so happened that the ranger who took care of the other piece of forest noted that his friend had now a child after many years of barrenness, so he could not help but ask him what had happened. But the ranger had promised Yuval that he would not reveal his secret. But the ranger wanted to help his friend, so he said, "Take my place. Let us reverse our care of our tracts of forest and see what happens." And so they swapped places, and it was not long before the other ranger also noted what happened in the interactions of Yuval with nature. And so he too approached Yuval, begging him, "Please, I have had already 7 sons, but each of these sons has died at birth. Please, can you help us?" Yuval again looked into the eyes of the ranger and said, "You remember the day before your wedding, you went with friends to the river, and there, jokingly, you noticed that there were roots of a tree that looked like fingers, and so you took off your ring and placed it on one of the fingers." Tears began to flow out of the ranger's eyes. He said, "Yes, yes, I was ashamed, and I put it out of my mind, trying to forget." Yuval said, "In this act, you wedded a demon of that place, and the demon is jealous, and therefore your sons have died at its hand. Go to the river and do what is needed to do. and your children will live. And indeed, this is what happened. The ranger went back to that place, enacting what it was that arose for him to do. And after this, the sons that were born to him lived. So, from this story, a question can be asked of us. A simple question. And that is, what does it mean when we say, I know it by heart, or he knows it by heart? Why do we not say, he has learned and remembered? Why do we say, I know it by heart? What is the deep meaning behind this saying? And what is the implication of it in this story?
The true knowledge is not of the mind, it's of the heart.